If they want to.
Burden on the
are so they're accessible to all students. And so when a student feels or doesn't have the same opportunity or access to raise the same amount of funds, and they put a stipulation on, you must raise X amount of dollars, or you are going to be penalized, or that creates a situation where now this child is discouraged from participating because A, that's embarrassing, B, they show up and they're like, okay, well, Johnny has only raised $20, like, he should be raising 100. And now that child who might not have a large network or access or opportunity or family who can fund the disparity from not being able to make it up, they now feel like they can't participate as a result of it, or feel singled out, or feel a certain way, when I think the whole point of public education sports, in my opinion, is more of what I'm thinking, not like a trip to Costa Rica or something, is for kids to have access and opportunity that they wouldn't be afforded otherwise in clubs or external, activities. So
I think it depends on the activity.
Yeah.
And I believe in fair access, but I also have an issue, and I think that's part of what's wrong with us now, is the fact that even though you didn't participate and do your part like everyone else did, because everybody can do something.
Right.
And if you just, we just don't do that.
I think, is there a way to capture, and maybe we have to go back and revisit this and have the discussion, not like that they can't be forced to participate, but more like penalized if they don't earn as much as the next person. Like, everybody's expected to participate to the best of their ability, but they're not gonna be punished if they can't earn the same amount as their teammate, or, as long as they're putting in an effort, I think that is something, I get what
And
you're
I can
saying.
go with that. I just have an issue with, okay, you get a free ride, whereas everybody else is out there doing whatever they can do. And they may know more people, so they have all kinds of different opportunities to basically gather some money.
I think my concern and what I was trying to capture and when I was looking at it and having discussions wasn't necessarily that I want to just make it easy for kids not to participate, because I do agree. I think there is a certain level and value in children doing their fair share and putting in the effort and trying. But I also feel like a kid shouldn't show up to a practice or a club and feel like, well, because I can't earn X amount of dollars, I'm not afforded the same access as my
I don't agree with that.
Or if I show up to practice, I am now going to be ostracized or have to do something or be penalized or, in trouble as a result of not meeting a certain.
I don't believe in public shaming, any of
And
that.
so that was kind of what I was trying to capture, not necessarily as much. I do think there is a certain level where it should be voluntary, but I do understand the balance. So I think that's a fair way to strike that balance. I just don't know how you would.
I was gonna say, I understand both y'all sides, but like you just said, the articulation of it, how do you put that in writing to make?
Yeah, it's a very subjective standard. I mean,
Crossing boundaries of one.
this current bullet point is for the model policy, but we could certainly change that to say something like participation in fundraising activities will be to the students' best ability. But it's a very subjective standard. I mean, who gets to determine whether the student has put forth sufficient effort or not? I don't know.
They even signed up or, donated $5. I mean, you know what I mean? I would say maybe participation in fundraising is, all kids should put forth an effort to participate in fundraising, but they will not be penalized, based on their ability to raise funds or something, I don't know.
I'm with you, but we could know that, but I don't know if I put that in there.
Well, I'm just trying to think of a way to
Yeah.
capture.
I understand.
I don't want to just say that the first part without the second part, because then that kind of.
And then I think sometimes the chairperson, whoever is over this particular group, should have those opportunities to speak with parents and find out, because if it's extenuating circumstance, like I would buy tissue and bring tissue and have everybody voluntarily bring tissue. And there was an instance where this young man, he had all kind of seasonal whatever, and he never did say why he wouldn't bring any. And then the mother wrote me this nasty note, my child will use the tissue. It's like, hold it, that's not happening. First of all you have to do is kind of let me know, due to certain circumstances, we at this time cannot. I'm good with that, I've been there. But they'll automatically say, my child is going to do, and you've made no effort to contact the school, the teacher, or sending, some kind of note or whatever. We all have challenges, but I think part of our life lesson is you either find a way to work around them, or you are able to explain and get folks to understand. I'm not trying to calm the system. Right now, we just can't do that, and I'm good with that. I mean, that's why I went out and bought it myself. But you don't tell me you automatically just get it. That's not happening.
I just think in some of these sports and organizations, it
And that's
gets
why I'm retired.
ultra, like, competitive and like, you must, and it's not always received with that.
And
And
that's why I say have that
I don't
conversation.
think that a lot
privately
of,
with the parents.
students feel comfortable saying that, and so I just wanted to remove that barrier. It was the same way we removed the barrier with free lunch. Remember how we weren't requiring the parents to fill out the form, or we'd fill it out for them because so many kids wouldn't sign up for free lunch because of the stigma. And I want to remove that barrier, because I think if a kid wants to participate in extracurriculars, as somebody who sees the value in that and understands that, like, this might be the thing that's keeping the kid out of trouble. This might be the positive situation environment this kid has access to as a result of it, or like the group of friends that's creating a positive environment that they might not have otherwise. And I don't want anything to inhibit, discourage, or make them feel like less than or incapable of contributing, or like they're not doing their part, or they're going to be ostracized by their peers. And so I think the goal of that is to try to capture, not creating that environment. And I don't know how to best articulate that, and so.
But maybe we do that in our procedures and not our policy, because I agree with everything that you're saying. And that is more procedural.
And I think that, I don't want to speak for Mr. Drakeford, Mr. Walsh, those who are primarily responsible for that, but it's my understanding that in general, if a student has come forward and expressed that they, don't have the means or the ability to participate, that is generally.
95% of people.
It's
I
generally
understand, I
the
want
case
to avoid them having to do that. I wanted to avoid them having to do that, and that was the point, is,
Well, being able to come and say, at this time we can.
yes. Because I think a lot of students that would otherwise, or choose just not to participate in sports. At least I've heard that. Like, I know from my community, which is a little bit, different area, I've had people express that it feels discouraging. Like when you feel like the expectation is X amount of money and you're constantly being told, it can be discouraging if you can't.
Also, see, I look at it from the academic side as well. We have to teach our kids that you have to be able to basically speak up for yourself and explain what the barriers may be for you, or your parents. More so the parents even do it. And even sometimes with the kids, because as a young person, there are certain things, I have to learn early. And maybe that's why I have this particular mindset about we can't just coddle them and they think, well, I don't have to do that. I'm still going to play. I'm still going to do. That's not life.
I don't think that, that's.
No, some of them.
Yeah, but just to speak for thought, not to be contrarian, but it's very difficult to incorporate into written policy or procedure subjective things.
Right.
That makes it very, very difficult. Secondly, for kids, quite frankly, I just find it reprehensible that we expect our children to have to be in fundraising anywhere underneath high school. And in high school, it used to be booster clubs that helped support the athletics and PTA that drove that kind of thing. It wasn't on the kids. And then lastly, we have enough trouble getting parents to advocate for their children academically, let alone these kinds of things. So I don't mean to diminish what we're trying to do here, but this is much harder than it looks like on the surface. And so I don't have any answers, but I just throw that out there.
I'm not gonna knock it out, I'm just voicing an opinion, I just see.
Maybe instead of saying will be wholly voluntarily, you could just, in policy, will be encouraged or strong encouraged, or whatever you want to change that language, because you're saying that that's model, right?
This language is from the model, yes.
So, I mean, that's the hard part, is that's also a standard, the standard across the state is saying that it should be wholly voluntary. And I'm trying to find the happy medium between, okay, we want kids to step up where they can, but we also don't want to create barriers for children that, probably need the access and opportunity to these extracurriculars, so, I don't know, we could discuss it more and revisit it, or do you feel like you
I
have?
think it's a
language
value,
or-
and, helping kids understand.
I don't mind
that.
doing it procedurally and then changing that line, but, I also believe it's model, so I'm not against keeping it either, so, I don't know, y'all's thoughts.
But isn't it wholly voluntary now? I mean, even though it's not in policy, that it is, right?
I'll give you an example. Some kids may have, let's say, a fee to get a player pack. It might be $8. So some kids, parents will just say, hey, I'll write the check. Some will say, I can do the fundraising. Here it is. If you want to sell this many tickets, that will go toward your player pack fee. And so kids do have that opportunity if they want to do that.
So it doesn't hurt to keep it if that's already in
Right.
practice.
A lot of it is very similar to that, just some of the experiences that I've had, so.
And then, so procedurally, that would be something you guys discuss about not creating an atmosphere where these kids.
Right, where they have to run, there's punishment, correct.
Yeah, or whatever it is, like, you're not, I don't know. I mean, if anything, reward the kids that meet the criteria, not penalize the kids that can't, that's the way I look at it.
I mean, and that, if you think about like the boosters, like if you move away from athletics for a minute and think about like things like that, that's what they do.
Yeah.
There has been like a shift, I feel like, in fundraising and those kind of things where they give incentives for doing it, but nobody is penalized. And even with those kids who, they might not get prizes, but they still get to participate in whatever it is, like, or classes might do things where if our class does this much, we get this, so that all kids can, so I feel like not in every single circumstance, but in a lot, I think they do tend to try to make it so that it's not penalizing.
So I guess making sure that that's consistent practice, like through all of our clubs and organizations, and that some aren't penalizing kids while some are rewarding kids for doing this. I do think it should be consistent. You're rewarded for meeting the goals, not necessarily penalized for not, if that makes
Well,
sense.
in line with that, there was an incident that happened last school term that was brought to my attention. And, apparently, the person was a senior, and they had some kind of fundraiser for the sports, whatever. And I guess they were, assigned a certain amount that they needed. And they didn't fulfill all of that, so he was basically being barred from participating with the prom. I had an issue with that. I mean, you're a senior, you don't get to do that again. And so there are just certain things. So I'm not cold-hearted, but when you're a senior, and so the parents had to, come up with this money. And that's something I helped to negotiate, but I had an issue with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I don't think it's.
No, I don't go with that. I mean, but if you have the ability and the wherewithal that you can participate or do something else in order to help out with that, I think you should.
Sometimes people can donate time, maybe something too, maybe you help.
Work a concession
Yeah,
stand.
Yes,
and
something
so-
like that.
Absolutely.
So that's not a policy that shouldn't be one that basically allow the school to withhold their ability to do something like that.
Should not do not raising money, no. Should not.
Yeah, and that was just addressed with the group, and then again at the principals meeting, on Friday.
Okay, good.
Apart from, so I'm fine with leaving that line since it's already what we do, and then I think procedurally, just ensuring we have consistent practices across all our sports and extracurriculars and things like that. I think, that's important, just so, students that are part of one organization don't feel slighted while other ones, do, or vice versa. But apart from that, I don't have any other questions on this policy. Does anybody else? So, unless there's anything specific you want to discuss, Ms. Graham, regarding it.
Okay. So this one is good to go?
Yes, and just to clarify, based on what I read, it was just like food sales during school hours, but like something like a football game, like they're selling.
Correct. So competitive food sales, there's a whole separate policy on that. It's a very complicated determination. So this is referring specifically to foods that don't meet the Smart Step standards and are competitive, like Chick-fil-A or something like that being sold, in terms of when and where it can be sold.
And that's coming from the smart food standard.
Yes,
It's
that's
not
what
your
USDA.
own. Yes.
All right, the next policy is JJE-R. This is the administrative rule that accompanies the policy we just looked at. And so I just made some modifications here based on what was in the current policy and in line with our updated practice. So for example, the model policy suggested that fundraisers would be approved by the principal and superintendent. We put grade level director or their designee because that is the practice that we are implementing here in our district. And then again, just sort of changing the language about both parent and student governed organizations for all school-related organizations. One thing that I did want to draw attention to is, again, the highlighted section here. No one may solicit monetary contributions from students at any time. Is taken out of the model policy. I highlighted that as something that the board may be interested in having remain in the policy so that people are not soliciting the students directly for monetary contributions, but I will.
Wouldn't that be like, give me an instance that would be appropriate?
I'm not sure that would be appropriate.
And I'm like, yeah.
I think that I'm honestly not sure, but it would be appropriate, which is why I think it should remain.
Okay.
But again, it's not in the model policy, so I'll defer to the group. It was in our policy previously. This one has not been updated since 2001, so I'm sure that the model has changed in that time.
I'm fine with not allowing them to solicit monetary contributions from students, if the board agrees.
Any other questions about the changes here?
No.
And this does, just to point out, talk about coordination of fundraising activities with the booster clubs, PTAs, et cetera. Just encouraging them to use the fundraising calendar developed by their school principal and align those activities. Because as you all mentioned, often the fundraising is done by the booster clubs, but using the students' assistance to do that. And so that can add to what the family feels is a burden and make it hard to distinguish what's a school fundraiser versus what's a booster club fundraiser. So just kind of encouraging those principals, especially at the secondary level, to sort of watch that coordination and try to make sure that students and families don't get overwhelmed. Okay. Next up is JJF, Student Activities Funds. So this, again, is fairly in line with the fundraising. This one had not been updated since 2003, and so I just updated it in line with the model policy. You will see, again, the highlighted information. So the information that is struck through and highlighted is not in the model policy, but is recommended to remain in our policy. And then the portion at the bottom that is highlighted and not struck through is in our current policy. And I apologize, it is in the model policy, but not in our current policy, and I recommend that that stays. So,
Do you recommend joining both of them as is? Like you said?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
So the section that talked about the balance not to exceed 10%, that is in our policy.
It is in our policy currently, it is not in the model policy. Oh, thank you. But it is a recommendation that it remain, even though it is not in the model policy. So that's why it's struck through, because it's not part of the model, but I highlighted it as something that I think should remain.
So they can keep a balance that exceeds 10% with written justification from the principal.
Yes.
So like, what if they wanna carry it over to get a bigger thing the following year? Okay, because I know that happens, like, you know, maybe they didn't quite get their goal, but they wanna earn more to like buy a bigger thing for their team or something. Okay, as long as that's still allowed.
So what happens if there is funds that they had carried over, but something happened and that club is dissolved? Where does the money?
So that's a great question. So the last line there talks about if the organization does not meet at least annually and elect officers, so essentially if they dissolve, then their organization account is made inactive and they liquidate the funds. It goes back to the school's general funds account. Is that correct, Tina? Is that good?
You agree, you agree.
Yeah, I'm good with that whole paragraph.
Okay. All right, and the last policy for today is JJF-R. This is the administrative rule that accompanies that policy. This is a district-only policy. There is no model policy for this. And I bring it forward today with no proposed changes, but just for review because it hasn't been reviewed since 2003. And since we were reviewing the accompanying policy, I thought it would be appropriate for the board to review this rule and update it as needed. So.
Yeah, I'm good with it still as it stands.
Classic.
That's all I have to say.
Well,
Yeah, get a public here.
I know, I'm gonna take a look at my agenda here, and yep, so do we have any public comments? Public, all right, so since we have no public comment, I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right,